Nothing in this podcast or on our website should be construed as medical advice. Consult your healthcare provider for your individual nutritional and medical needs. The information presented is based on our research and is strictly that of the author and not necessarily those of any professional group or other individual.
Hi, I'm Sue Becker from Bread Beckers. Welcome to Sue's Healthy Minutes. I'm so excited you've joined me today, and I hope this episode encourages you and allows you to find the answers you have been praying for the health of you and your family. Today on Sue's Healthy Minutes, I have a very unique It's the Bread story for everyone. My guest today is Deb Peets, and I'm so excited to have her share her story of ministry and real bread, and of course, all the ways real bread has improved her health. Deb, thank you so much for joining me today. I went on your website yesterday, and I must say, I'm very intrigued by your ministry. So I'd love for you to begin by telling everyone a little about yourself, where you're from, and of course, about your beautiful home and lodge ministry.
Well, first, thank you so much, Sue. I was so excited to hear from you, and I'm just so blessed by being able to talk to you. So thank you.
You are very welcome. I think you're going to bless everyone.
Thank you so much. Well, my husband, Ed, and I, we've been married for a little over 30 years. We celebrated 30 years in June. And we have 5 children, ranging in ages from 17 to 27. And they are actually all home with us right now for a season. So it's just been a really special time for our family. And about 6 years ago, we've lived in New Hampshire in the town of Claremont for about 17 years. And about 6 years ago, we officially moved to where we are now, and established our ministry called The Lodge. And it's a unique ministry in that the Lodge is both our home and also where all of our ministry takes place. We have the main house, and then as we speak today, we also have construction going on to turn our garage into additional ministry space for small groups such as recovery groups, and also a guest space that will be upstairs. And so we are a soul care ministry and gathering place, and our heart really is to help people grow in their relationship with the Lord and to find hope and healing and belonging around the table. Everything we do, whether it's a Bible study group or a potluck dinner or just one-on-one counseling, is centered on God's word and most often happens around the table. And our desire is for people to feel welcome in every way. And when they leave here, we want them to feel nourished both in their soul and body.
That is amazing. Now, it's called the Lodge Ministry, but right now, it is not like people can't book a room and come stay there. It is a gathering, a meeting place, right?
Yes, well, actually, it is mainly that, but we also do have a guest room that has its own kitchenette and bathroom where people can, and they do come to stay with us. Sometimes people who just need rest,
yes,
who maybe are going through a difficult time in their life. We had someone come and stay with us one time and study for her bar exam. And we've had just people come who just need a little time to themselves to rest and renew. And we offer that space. And then that's in the lodge itself at kind of one end. And then in the new garage space, the room upstairs will be just the same idea as well, an additional guest space for that purpose.
That is so amazing. A quiet place to just get away and hear from the Lord and get rejuvenated. That is amazing.
Yes.
And food, I think, is a major part. Like you said, everything takes place around the table. And you mentioned how much you love to bake and cook for other people. You sound very much like me. This has been a dream of mine too. But tell me now, how did you first hear about Bread Beckers, and what inspired you the most with what you heard?
Well, I first heard of you and your ministry on another podcast, and I'm trying to remember which one, but I remember hearing your name on this podcast and what you do and about the bread. And that was in this past November, so not that long ago.
Yeah.
And that led me to your podcast. Like, I think I got off that other podcast and went right to you and found you. And that's where I began listening and learning. And I was immediately inspired by just your clear explanation of whole grains and what that actually even means. I just had no idea about the complete nutrition in wheat berries and how the bran and germ have been taken out to make bread shelf stable in our stores. It just all, in your first podcast, it just all clicked for me.
It just makes sense because it's real. And
yes, absolutely. And then I think I texted my husband. We have, in the evenings we have a commercial cleaning business. And so we do ministry, during the day and on, during the weekdays and on Sunday, but in the evenings we do have that, cleaning business that we do. And so I remember texting him, and just saying, you have to listen to this podcast. And we got home that night and he sat me down and he's just said, I listened to the podcast, and he's the more practical one of the two of us. I'm the dreamer. He's the practical, slower in making decisions. But he said, I have to tell you, I listened to the podcast, and he said, I kept listening to more than just the first one. And he said, we have to do it. He said, buy the mill and let's get started.
Wow.
And I was so excited. I ordered the grain mill the next morning. But I couldn't wait. It was it was right before Christmas. I knew it was going to take a little longer to get it. And so I think it was just that following day after we talked, I traveled to our closest co-op that we have here, Whole Foods co-op store, to see if maybe they sold some wheat berries. And they had one kind. They had the hard red wheat berries. And so I brought them home. I got just as much as I could fit in the bag and brought them home and used my Vitamix to grind up some wheat berries the best I could. And I started making the bread that very day, and we've never looked back.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So then the mill came, and you started making lots of bread for other people, or for at least for your gatherings. Yes. So how has learning about real bread changed the way you bake for others?
Oh my goodness. Yes, it has changed. It's changed everything about the way I bake. I just no longer use packaged flour. All my quick breads and cookies and pastries, yeast bread, sourdough, all of it I make now with the fresh milled flour. So it's changed the entire way that I bake. Yes.
It always intrigues me when I hear or hear people say, well, I still use white flour when I bake stuff to give away to other people because they don't care. And I'm like, I couldn't do that. I could not give away something that I know is not healthy and is not the best that could be. But, so I was really blessed when you said you just started baking all the good things for others.
Absolutely. I'm kind of a all or nothing. And once I learned about what I was feeding people and baking for people with that flour and what it just was not healthy for them. And then learning about the whole grains, I just could not, like you, I could not keep doing it the other way. And I was a little worried that I wondered how my kids and family would, I think of them first and will they like it? And I didn't even tell them.
What you were doing. You just started.
I made the bread and I just made them cookies and they loved them. So yes.
Yeah. You sound so much like me. I'm a real all or nothing kind of person. And I was thinking when you said that you didn't really tell them, you just started using it. I think think that was the way I was too. I mean, it's been 34 years now, so I'm thinking back, and I just brought the mill and started milling flour and just started making lots of bread and muffins and pancakes. And
Yes.
you really ask, what is this? Why is it different? It just was the way we lived. So
I love that.
yes. So, and I'm an all or nothing kind of person, so I've never looked back either. So tell me about your Sunday potluck dinner and your first one since learning about real bread. When you told me all the things you made for everyone, I was like, oh my goodness, I wish I had been there.
Oh, it was so much fun. Yes. So every other Sunday, we gather with people around the table. When we purchased the lodge, it has this very long dining room. And so we looked for the longest table we could find and to fit the most people that we could for these potlucks. And so every other Sunday, we gather around that table, and Ed, my husband, or someone else sometimes shares encouragement and a challenge from the Bible, and we all discuss it around the table as we eat together. And everyone is welcome. And while we do have regulars that come, we also have new people all the time coming in. And we do potluck style because there's just something so beautiful about eating a meal prepared by everyone's hands.
Yes.
And people feel that they've contributed, and we all just enjoy each other's favorite dishes. And in the summer, we have a garden that we've started that everyone can take from and use to prepare the meal that they bring to share the next time we meet together. And the first time we had our potluck, after I began making the bread, I prepared, it kind of went crazy, and I prepared several loaves of the Ezekiel bread and the sandwich bread for people from your recipe book, because I also purchased that.
Yeah.
So I made several loaves for people to take home with them, but I also had made loaves for the potluck, and I had sliced those up and I had them on the counter, and I had made cookies. I had all kinds of breads for people to try. And then before we prayed and ate together, Ed and I were able to share what the bread actually was and just a little bit about your story. And everybody loved it. And every single loaf was, and also the bread on the counter was just all gone by the end of that day.
Oh,
So
that's
yes.
incredible. I mean, you said you made Ezekiel bread, the basic bread, 2 kinds of cornbread, the black rice and the rye bread. I'm like, oh my goodness, that is amazing. That is so amazing. And I guess you can say real bread has changed your life and your ministry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Yes.
that is wonderful. I'm telling you, the similarities are just amazing because I was that way. I mean, I wanted to take bread to every church function. Well, I did, and share it with other people. I'd send people home with the leftovers. And the next thing I know, they were asking me, what is this? What's different about it? I feel different. So you mentioned that there have been some significant health changes as well. So I want you to just start from the beginning and tell me about those. You gave me quite a list of improvements. Were they all just for you or your whole family as well?
Yes, I can talk about mine. And before I even mention that, I wanted to share someone who comes to the house quite often, to our ministry to eat with us. And, she has a lot of health issues and, is on a lot of medications and just has a difficult time. And I wondered if she's pretty specific in what she likes to eat. So I wondered if she would like the bread. And she was there that first Sunday that we shared it. And she loved the Ezekiel bread. And so I sent her home with a loaf, and she lives alone. And so it took her some time to get through it. And she actually reached out to me a couple days ago, actually. And she said, that she had run out of the bread. Could I make her some more bread? She said, it's changed my life.
Wow.
And it's emotional because, she had shared with me that while she was eating the bread, she was not getting sick from her medications. She would normally throw up after these certain medications she had to take. And when she was eating the bread, she wasn't throwing up. And it was amazing to hear that. But she ran out of the bread. And so she was feeling sick again. And so my husband, he's amazing. He actually delivered bread to her. And so now she has bread, but we plan on keeping her supplied and just because this changes in her have been just so significant. And as far as changes in myself, I wrote down some of these significant changes because the biggest difference I saw at first was my energy levels increase.
Yep.
And my brain fog disappeared. I would be in the grocery store before starting the bread and my vision almost felt a little blurred and I just felt exhausted. And just, I don't know, that brain fog.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time shopping after I had been eating the bread and it just dawned on me, oh my goodness, I feel great and I feel clear-headed and I have energy. And those are the two, like right away, the biggest changes I saw. The biggest blessing, I think, for me personally so far has been that I was really, I would say for as long as I can remember, I've struggled with sugar. I love sugar. I love to bake and, you taste everything you make. And, I also, since I was a little girl, struggle on and off with being anemic. And, it came back big time a couple of years ago and they were getting to the point, if it didn't get better, they were going to do a blood transfusion. And I was able to kind of get out of that slump, but I have not, until the bread, had my energy back from that. And so the bread, I found myself not wanting sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
And if I'm going to go through this trouble of making this delicious whole grain bread, I not only did just mentally, it doesn't make sense for me to go back to that processed stuff, but I just didn't feel hungry and I didn't crave the sugar and I didn't have the highs and lows of my blood sugar level. So it has just not only changed our ministry, but physically has changed my health. I know my husband could tell you his story and our daughter also who struggles with migraines. I said, make sure you eat at least 2 slices every day. I want to see how this changes things for you. And so she's been eating it for a couple of weeks and she's been trying to stay faithful with it. And I believe she's starting to see a decrease in her migraines.
That is so great. That is so great to hear. And I think people don't know how to differentiate between whole grains, real whole grains, and simple carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are broken down into sugars that our body needs for energy. All are, but whole grains, because of the fiber there, are broken down, digested more slowly. You get that slower release of those good sugars coming from the carbohydrates that your body needs. So you're for energy. So you're going to have sustained energy, but also because your body's getting those sugars that it needs. And I'm not talking about white sugar. I'm talking about the glucose and fructose broken down from carbohydrates. It's going to take away those sugar cravings because you don't have those highs and lows. I think it's fascinating that you notice the brain fog, though, because, there's some books out there, Grain Brain, and people talk about how whole grains just are terrible for your brain and blah, 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 all that nonsense. And I noticed it too. And I just think that's wonderful that you saw a noticeable difference in that and that you mentioned that.
Absolutely. It was one of the first things I noticed. Yeah. Absolutely. It was amazing. Yeah.
And then you talked about getting better sleep. So you're finding some of that has helped and your gut health is good.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. I'm sleeping soundly. I'm not waking up as much in the middle of the night. Yes. And my gut health, the bloating, inflammation, all of that was an issue for me. And it's just significantly different now. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to explain to people. But when you go from point A to an amazing point B, you're like, okay, this is not just a coincidence. This is very significant. So
absolutely.
I just think it's wonderful how you're sharing your bread with others. And is there anything else that you want to share before we close? Any final words of encouragement that you would like to leave our listeners with today? Just feel free to share anything that God puts on your heart.
Goodness, I could talk all day about how wonderful the changes are, but a little story to just, again, tell you how much this has changed our ministry. We have a Bible study. It's a ladies' Bible study that we've had for years, and we meet Tuesday mornings, and I always bake something. Sometimes it's a full breakfast. Sometimes it's just scones or something like that. And I found that for the past few months, the ladies were just not eating as much of my baked goods. They were trying to eat healthier. And I felt so at odds with wanting to bake for people. It's how I show love and how I just show hospitality. But I just had this feeling, wait, I want them to feel nourished, but they're not wanting to eat it because it's not really healthy. And I didn't know how to change that without just stopping baking. And that's right about the time that I learned about the real bread and about your ministry. And it just, everything clicked. It filled like this missing puzzle piece in our ministry. And as feeding people is such a huge part of what we do, almost, everything centers around the table, and we're always sharing food with people. And such beautiful things happen around the table when we converse and eat with people. And I thought, Lord, I can't imagine you want me to stop this ministry of baking and so he showed me, no, you need to continue, but you need to do it in this better way. And so now it's just, we know we're not just feeding people, but we're truly giving them healthy, nourishing bread and baked goods. And that has led to being able to teach people all the spiritual aspects of bread and Jesus being the bread of life. And it actually will relate to people because we're offering them this physical bread and then able to teach them how Jesus is the bread of life. It just makes sense. And isn't God so good? I think that's the encouragement I want to share, is that I would encourage everyone to do this. To me, it's worth selling something if you need to in order to buy a mill and start making your own bread. God is just so good. And he tells us in his word that he's given us everything we need for life and godliness. And I believe that the bread is part of that. And he's given us this perfect whole grain that he wants us to be nourished by and help us to live lives for his purpose. And I just believe the bread will give us the energy and health and sustenance to do just that.
Yes. And I know too, for me, that was a real place of satisfaction, knowing that what I was putting on the table and sharing with other people was nourishing, was life-giving, and not detrimental to your health. And I know in the early days of milling my flour, Isaiah 55 verse 2 just leapt off the page at me. And it says, why do you spend your money for that which is not bread and your earnings for what does not satisfy? Not only did it speak to me, and I was like, I didn't know that it wasn't bread, that what I was spending my money on, and that it didn't satisfy. And it actually contributed to health issues. But it also burned me for the church because I know, and I'm not condemning anyone at all, but churches often have food ministries, and the stuff they're giving people, it saddens me because, and I get it, it's stuff that doesn't spoil. Grocery stores can give you all their leftover bread because it's gonna not mold or rot or anything, but it's not nourishing people. And And even I will go so far as to say possibly even contributing to health issues. So
yes,
that was a real, I don't know, it's just something so comforting to take a loaf or share a loaf of really, really healthy bread, that not only is delicious, but very nutritious. So that's beautiful that God gave you the way to do it His way.
Yeah.
And they, were concerned about eating something that wasn't healthy and you made it the right choice for them. So quite a few years ago, it's funny, the Lord put on my heart an idea for a ministry, and I wanted to encourage people to share their bread with other people. And my idea was, make 3 or 4 loaves of bread to have, but 1 to give away, either to a stranger or whoever God put on your heart. And I even came up with a name, and I called it Spread the Bread. But I just never really knew how to get it going. And so reading your email about your ministry and how you're sharing real bread around the table with others, it just made me so happy. And I can say you are truly spreading the bread. And I just thank you so much for emailing me and for taking the time out of your busy day today to share with everyone not only your It's the Bread story, but how you're sharing this bread through your ministry with others. It's just been such a blessing to hear all that God is doing in you and through you. And now it's just spreading. It's spreading. And I know I've done several It's the Bread story interviews with others that their health changed because someone in their church or neighbor or whatever gave them a loaf of bread and they could see the difference. So for everyone listening today, perhaps today you feel led to share your bread with someone else. After hearing Deb's story, you're more encouraged to just do it. I love the verse in the Gospel of John, chapter 6, verse 26. When the crowds are following Jesus, he says to them, I tell you the truth, you have been searching for me, not because you saw the miracles and the signs, but because you ate the bread and you were satisfied. Maybe we all might spread the bread today. You never know what door God may open for you to share the love of Jesus with this one simple act. Deb, thank you again so very much for sharing your story. I have a feeling you're going to have some people checking out your lodge ministry that go, I need quiet. I need to get away.
Oh, well, thank you, Sue. I want to thank you again for your ministry and just your tireless efforts and teachings and the joy you spread. I feel joy every time I listen to you and learn so much from you. And just thank you for what you're doing. And I know it's changing lives. I know it is.
You are very, very welcome. And I know that you are partnering in this bread ministry and changing lives of others. So thank you.
Amen. You're welcome.
So I just thank you again. And as always, thank you all for listening today. And until next time, this is Sue Becker from Bread Beckers with Sue's Healthy Minutes.
Sue's Healthy Minutes podcast has been a presentation by the Bread Beckers Incorporated located in Woodstock, Georgia. For more information, store hours, and learning opportunities, visit breadbeckers.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. Share this with 2 friends who would benefit from this information, and be sure to join us again next week for more of Sue's Healthy Minutes.